The man, as usual, took his gun and lunch food, said goodbye to his beloved son, and then drove to work. But just as he reached the road at the top of the village, he was suddenly blown to pieces. The culprit was a drone flying at over 10,000 meters, controlled by someone tens of thousands of kilometers away, at Creech Air Force Base in Nevada, USA. The soldier operating the drone was named Victor. After each mission, he always felt exhausted and sad. To relieve his stress, he decided to visit the largest casino in Las Vegas during his vacation. Unexpectedly, he won a bag full of money. After unwinding, he returned to work. The results just came back, and he received shocking news. The intelligence agents had marked the wrong target, and the man he had bombed was just an ordinary civilian. He couldn't accept this reality, because he had been observing that man for a long time ago, a man with a son and an elderly father. His colleague said he was just following orders, but emotionally, he couldn't accept this truth. Moreover, he began to doubt the actions of drone strikes, but his teammates advised him that rather kill 1,000 people than spare one. Who could know if 1 second later, someone would blow up a Marine Corps vehicle? During the next 10 days of leave, Victor flew straight to Turkey, then spent a large sum to rent a car to a small town in Syria, where he had been monitoring from afar. In the end, he also went to the house of the man he had murdered. No matter what he had to face, he decided to face it bravely. Victor gathered all his courage to knock on the door of the man's house. At that time on the road, everything was still the same. The person who opened the door was the elderly father of that man. Victor felt immense regret as he introduced himself. He said he killed the man's son. However, due to the language barrier, he even resorted to using body language to express himself. The old man didn't understand what Victor was saying, but still invited him inside and made tea for him. As Victor saw the picture of the man, he felt even more anxious. At that moment, the old man brought the tea and sat down opposite Victor. He quickly took out money from his pocket, but the old man immediately said he wouldn't take any money for water. Just then, the man's son came home, saw Victor, and ran outside. Then he brought 3 boxes of local eggs to introduce to Victor. So, Victor took all the money in his pocket, considered buying their eggs. He drank a sip of the tea the old man made and said, "I'm sorry." It was unclear whether the old man understood Victor's intention, but in the end, Victor used this way to compensate for a mistake he did not cause. After returning to base during an assassination mission, Victor encountered an unexpected situation. A woman running in panic with her 2 children on the street caught their attention. In the vehicle chasing the 3 of them, there was someone suspected by the military, so they continued to monitor. Victor's colleagues saw the car kidnap the woman, afraid that something terrible would happen next. At that moment, 2 girls were taken into the vehicle by the man. Then the man opened fire and killed the 2 girls' teammates. Next, he dragged the woman aside, intending to rape her. Victor's team, located tens of thousands of kilometers away, could not contain their anger. They felt they needed to do something. At that moment, the woman desperately fought back. She scratched the man's face, then pushed him down and ran away. Victor reported that he had the target in his sights, but his superiors ordered him to stop. When he saw that the woman was about to be caught by that scoundrel again, Victor decisively pressed the button. Although he disobeyed orders this time, Victor was not punished. He even achieved merit because the woman he saved was the wife of a terrorist leader, a very important person that the intelligence agency was searching for. The man had kayaked on the Potomac River in Washington early in the morning, then rode his bike to work. But on his way, he nearly had an accident with a man driving a car, but fortunately, he finally arrived at work on time. His job was very interesting. He worked in financial analysis at the intelligence agency, specializing in studying unusual transactions in the Middle East. The goal was to prevent terrorist elements from mobilizing large sums of money, simultaneously conducted terrorist activities. The new superior who organized the meeting turned out to be James, the man who had been riding his car without paying attention to the road this morning. His attitude was indeed not good, and the questions he asked were mainly purposed to make things difficult for the employees. It seemed that the new supervisor was not easy to work with. Victor could only endure it. The target he had been tracking for so long finally showed its loophole. He requested his superiors to immediately stop this account because there was certainly someone behind it engaging in illegal activities. Perhaps that person was a very formidable figure, second only to bin Laden. However, his superiors did not heed his suggestion. Even so, he could not sit idly by and watch the terrorists use money for illegal activities, so he could only ask for help from the beautiful girl from the finance department. Just a few compliment. She fell into the trap. She didn't need to ask for superior's opinion and immediately proposed freezing the account. However, this matter was still discovered by superiors. Although there was a heated argument between the 2 sides, fortunately, the task was completed. At the top of the street on the other side of the world, the scene was extremely bustling. The bank director and high-profile clients were discussing cooperation in a cafe amidst the noisy street. An agent from the American intelligence agency targeted them. He collaborated with local police and quietly launched an operation. A sniper immediately requisitioned an apartment building and picked up the sniper rifle. A woman approached them, pretending to write with a pen that could eavesdrop, but it was too noisy outside outside to hear what two of them were saying. Moreover, pedestrians obstructed the view, so the sniper had no opportunity to shoot. Not long after, the group of 3 bank directors stood up to leave, and the police also quickly followed behind. In a quiet alley, one person stopped the bank directors to ask for directions. Behind 2 electric batons quickly approached. Just like that, the 2 were arrested. Meanwhile, in Washington, USA, the man was attending a friend's birthday party, happily chatting with a beautiful girl he had just met, when a helicopter from the US Coast Guard landed there. Unexpectedly, the birthday party featured a special act. Then 2 Special Forces soldiers descended from the helicopter, calling out Ryan's name, and they ran straight toward him. Ryan still didn't understand what was happening. He was taken away under the curious gazes of everyone. It turned out that the owner of the bank account he had been monitoring had been arrested in Yemen. Ryan knew best what to ask, so was sent to participate in the interrogation. Ryan stated that he was not the interrogator. He was the one writing the report. James didn't say much and immediately ordered Ryan onto the plane, giving him no chance to object. They took him directly to a hellish prison in the Sarawat Mountains in Yemen. Intelligence agencies from 8 other countries, aside from the US, had quietly established this hellish prison to conceal and interrogate key terrorism suspects. Not long ago, 2 Middle Eastern men arrested on the streets of Yemen had been brought here. This was Ryan's first time in such a heavily guarded place, and he was somewhat surprised by the surroundings. US law does not allow prisoners to be held in secret prisons isolated from the world, which is why the CIA built prisons abroad. Ryan encountered 2 newly arrested men. The man in a suit was the main suspect, and the one beside him was a bodyguard. Ryan called the person who transferred money into the account he was monitoring, but unexpectedly, the phone found on the suspect rang. This incident significantly reduced their interrogation efforts, so the primary suspect was taken to another room. However, after several hours of questioning, he revealed nothing, only stating that he knew nothing. At this moment, Ryan stepped outside to get some air. Suddenly, he thought about finding a loophole through the bodyguard. The prison guards uncuffed the bodyguard, then cuffed him to the table. Ryan brought food and drinks to approach the bodyguard. First, he ate. Seeing the bodyguards still suspicious, he swapped his plate with the bodyguards, then continued eating. Finally, the bodyguard let down his guard, took a bottle of water to drink, sang, and then tore off a piece of bread to chew on. Ryan knew the bodyguard spoke English, so the two began to chat with each other. Ryan noticed the bodyguard had many scars on his hands, and at that moment, a group of people gathered outside the prison. It turned out that local residents brought the bodies of several American soldiers who had been killed in an explosion. The Americans were compelled to provide satisfactory answers to the families of the soldiers, so they often bought the bodies of American soldiers at a high price and then sent them to the morgue, led the doctor to conduct a DNA test to determine the identity. However, just as the soldiers had turned off the power and left, one of the bodies suddenly uncovered its face cloth and removed a mask made of human skin. It turned out this was not a real American soldier's body. He stood up, checked the body next to him, and touched what he needed. First, he removed the clothing from the body, revealing a long tear down the middle of the abdomen, and he reached inside to retrieve a package. If normal people seeing this scene would either faint or vomit, but he skillfully and calmly assembled the gun and waited for the right moment in the morgue. At that moment, outside the prison, a vehicle arrived. The soldiers recognized the driver as someone familiar who had previously brought them the bodies of American soldiers, so they didn't pay much attention. Suddenly, the vehicles that had stopped in front of the door revved up and crashed straight into the gate. The sentries noticed something was wrong and immediately opened fire. The vehicle crashed into the side of the gate. The driver also died in the hail of bullets, but his mission was accomplished. The bomb on the vehicle exploded, blowing the prison gate apart. The horrific explosion shook the entire prison, and the special forces in the interrogation room began to be on high alert. Then, a Middle Eastern man carrying missiles fired at the guard outside the cell, launching an official raid. The CIA operatives inside the jail heard the commotion and rushed outside to see. James saw Ryan and immediately ordered him to return to the interrogation room to wait for instructions. Ryan could only comply with the order. At this moment, the armed forces overwhelmed the CIA soldiers, leaving them unable to resist and severely injured. The person who had previously disguised himself as a dead body sneaked into the prison. He entered through the back door and shot to kill the guard. He then had another guard take him to find the new prisoners from the previous night. However, when he saw the man in a suit, he shot that man dead. At this moment, there was still intense gunfire outside. The generator had been shot and was malfunctioning, and the lights in the interrogation room were about to fail. Ryan was extremely tense, but the security personnel being interrogated remained surprisingly calm. Ryan then heard noises outside and quickly hid behind the door. As the man disguised as a corpse was about to enter, Ryan hurriedly closed the door, grabbed his gun, and threw it away. The two then engaged in a struggle. It was very difficult to defeat an unarmed agent. The intruder took the opportunity to grab a knife from the waist of the dead soldier and slashed Ryan's stomach, holding the knife to his throat. Fortunately, Ryan trained every day and was very strong. At that that moment, the bodyguard managed to catch Ryan, and the two of them combined their strength to pin him to the ground. However, Ryan was still an agent. He used all his strength to break free from their grasp, then turned to pick up a grenade from behind. Meanwhile, the intruder had managed to grab a gun. Ryan immediately pulled the safety catch, and neither side dared to move. As a result, Ryan successfully escaped death. Before leaving, the bodyguard mentioned that he thought Ryan was a psychologist. This suddenly made Ryan realize the true identity of the bodyguard. He was Suleiman, the leader of the terrorist group they were investigating. Outside the prison, the battle was still intense. Suleiman relied on the rope thrown in from outside to escape. Seeing their leader rescued, the armed group began to withdraw. The two younger brothers in the car hugged each other excitedly. No one is born a terrorist. They were once innocent children. However, in 1983, when France bombed the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon, all their relatives were killed. Only two brothers were outside at that time, so luckily they escaped. But to lift a burning that was crushing his younger brother, the older brother's hands were severely injured. Later, the two brothers were taken in by a foster family, where they studied and lived in France. Suleiman excelled in school and was a very passionate young man with many hopes for the future. However, his lineage determined his fate. Suleiman studied finance, but after graduating, he could not integrate into the arrogant society of France. During job interviews, he faced discrimination and was constantly rejected. With no other options, Suleiman could only work in a restaurant. His younger brother, Ali, who was a few years younger than Suleiman, loved to draw and was very mischievous, refusing to accept their situation. One time, when the two brothers met, Ali somehow found a gun. Suleiman was very worried upon seeing this and called Ali aside to talk. Suddenly, two police officers appeared as Ali was smoking marijuana, but they had attracted the attention of the police. The police came to search them, and for the future of his younger brother, Suleiman confronted the police. The gun fell to the ground, and he told his brother to run away while he stayed behind to take all the blame. While serving his sentence, Ali felt extremely guilty for visiting Suleiman. Ali suddenly noticed that his brother was not sad at all. Rather, influenced by others, Suleiman became even more enthusiastic. Inherently, Suleiman would lose all his relatives, so he had never felt the warmth of family. However, here he found God in Islam, a belief that gave him a new sense of belonging and pointed him toward a new path. Suleiman assured his brother that after he got out of prison, they would welcome a new world together. From then on, they went down the wrong path and became terrorists. On the other side, Ryan returned to the CIA headquarters in the United States. The CIA and the European Counterterrorism Center collaborated to conduct an urgent investigation. They knew very little about the terrorist organization that had ambushed them this time, and they believed that Suleiman was also from an Islamic country. However, Ryan refuted this idea, as financial resources for Islamic terrorist organizations mainly came from oil smuggling from Iraq and Syria. But Suleiman was different. He mobilized money from a frozen fake bank account online, and they could not trace the source of the funds. It seemed that his tricks were much more sophisticated and mysterious. Furthermore, their subsequent actions became even harder to grasp. To capture this notorious leader, the Counterterrorism Finance Department had to cooperate with the European Counterterrorism Center. Meanwhile, on the other side of the globe, the two deeply bonded brothers said their temporary goodbyes. Suleiman sent Ali to Paris, France, to carry out an important mission. This handsome man had just broken into an American prison, risking his life to save his brother. This time, he went to Paris alone to solve the funding issues for the organization. After all, in Syria, his brother Suleiman was gathering soldiers to expand their power. The daily weapons and ammunition, as well as the types of weapons needed for upcoming terrorist activities, all required money. He met with a man to buy a bag full of phone SIMs. These SIM cards were a shortcut for them to transfer stolen money. On the other side, at the CIA headquarters in the United States, James asked Ryan to unlock the phone of the terrorist organization leader, Suleiman. However, the phone, containing highly confidential information, did not have a standard password, such as 6 zeros or a date of birth. Ryan tried many times but failed. If he attempted to unlock it, he feared it might trigger the phone's self-destruct mode. James noticed Suleiman's actions when he switched from using ropes to handcuffs tied to the table in prison. His movements were very skilled, indicating that this was not his first time in jail. However, the CIA had no records of him. Ryan remembered that Suleiman's SIM card was French SIM, so he began searching for information about Suleiman's true identity in the French prison system. Ryan quickly devised a plan to input data from his prison records. Each person had a unique password that was special to them. Certainly not wrong. This time, James had a different perspective on Ryan. They investigated the locations frequently contacted by the phone, discovering that one of them was an apartment building in Paris, which they suspected to be their base. After obtaining approval from their superiors, they set off for Paris and met with local police. She led everyone to the gathering place of the Muslim followers to surround and capture them. Meanwhile, in the apartment, Suleiman's younger brother, Ali, was with a group of associates using the fake SIM cards to set up bank accounts, then transfer money. Previously, they had had $9.5 million frozen by the CIA, so they needed to find money quickly. However, at that moment, police cars quietly surrounded the entire building. Special police teams surrounded the apartment building. Ali had prepared for this. Just as the police were passing through the small hallway downstairs, a boy immediately sent a message. Ali was reporting the situation to his brother when he suddenly received a warning. He immediately arranged for everyone to retreat, gathering all their belongings and retrieving guns from around the house. Everyone was searching for arms when Ali pulled out their most powerful item. At first, everyone was a bit shocked, but then a woman volunteered to carry it. The special police just passed through the apartment door. Before they could blow the door open, heavy fire from inside took down two of them. The people in the apartment fought back desperately, and Ali's stomach was also injured. Meanwhile, the person carrying the bomb was in the kitchen, fearfully waiting for the moment when their body would be engulfed in flames. Ali was protected by his teammates as he jumped from a window to the floor below and then broke into the crowd who went outside. Ryan, assisting an injured person, noticed blood on the stair railing and set the injured person down to chase after the source. However, by that time, Ali had already merged into the crowd. Although Ryan drew his weapon, he couldn't risk injuring an innocent person and had to stand by and watch as Ali escaped. Inside the apartment, the bomber was surrounded on all sides by the police. As the woman fell, the bomb detonator in her hand activated, resulting in a massive explosion that severely injured several French officers. Ryan returned to the apartment and saw a SIM card on the ground. It seemed to be how they mobilized their funds. A police officer brought a notebook belonging to Suleiman, revealing his real name was Musa bin Suleiman. During his 23 months in prison, the only person who visited him was Ali. They had also registered an address at another Islamic base. Unexpectedly, injured Ali had run to this location, as his uncle had previously worked as a doctor in Lebanon. He helped Ali handle to his wounds. While his uncle was distracted, Ali found a game disc, which turned out to be his means of contacting Suleiman. Suleiman, knowing that his younger brother was being pursued by the police, instructed that anyone who had ever encountered him must be silenced to prevent any repercussions. Ali took out a gun, but when he saw his former benefactor, he couldn't bring himself to act. At that moment, the police arrived at this Islamic base, holding up a picture of Ali and asking around. James was informed of an address by a local Muslim boy leading them to Ali's uncle's house. However, Ali had managed to escape just in time. Ryan sensitively noticed a game title on the computer screen, but the children at his uncle's house had never played that game, so it had to be Ali's. Ali's uncle, under the surveillance and seduction of the team leader, eventually revealed that Ali had taken his car. The police then used the car's license plate to access its GPS tracking. The police chief dispatched a team to intercept the vehicle, but Ryan quickly intervened, because from the chat history in the game, it can be seen that Ali was going to meet someone. To clearly investigate their next actions, they couldn't act rashly. They needed to seize the opportunity to catch everyone involved. So, they immediately set off based on the GPS to head to the Alps, a place blanketed in beautiful white snow. However, they were not in the mood to admire the scenery. Before long, night fell, and Ryan realized that the target he was tracking had stopped, so he notified the car behind to head to the ski resort up ahead. Check it out. James arrived at the small house near the ski resort and indeed saw Ali's car, but there was no sign of person. He noticed that a neighboring parking spot had clearly just had another vehicle leave, indicating that Ali had changed cars. Sure enough, Ali emerged from the gas station restroom and spotted Ryan probing his vehicle. Ali pulled out his gun, intending to ambush Ryan. At that moment, the manager of the convenience store came out yelling loudly and quickly returned fire. Hearing the gunfire, the store employees ran out and began shooting as well, resulting in one employee being shot dead. Ryan realized his gun was still in his car and could only hide from Ali. Eventually, he managed to circle around to the other side of the vehicle, crawled inside, retrieved his gun, and returned fire. But in the end, Ali managed to escape. First, Ryan checked the team leader wounds and urgently called for an ambulance. Then, he chased after the direction Ali had fled, following the trail of blood to a nearby warehouse. Ali had run out of ammunition, so he resorted to stealth attacks. Not long ago, they had just fought in Yemen, and now they were battling again beneath the Alpes. But Ali was still no match for Ryan. He crawled up from the ground, feeling utterly desperate because the mission was still incomplete. Ryan had intended to capture Ali and interrogate him about where the next attack would take place, but Ali pretended to draw his gun, prompting Ryan to shoot him dead. When Ryan returned to the gas station, he found that the police captain couldn't wait for the ambulance. This time, the trap plan had completely failed. Ryan sadly returned to the US, but he quickly received information about a terrorist incident. What terrible thing had Suleiman done? In a large church in Paris, many dignitaries had gathered for the funeral of a famous priest. A man bent down to pretend to tie his shoelaces to unzip a bag, turning on his phone screen screen. He opened the second and third items, then they calmly sat and waited as if nothing was happening. As everyone stood up to read prayers for the priest, they stealthily slipped outside and immediately locked the doors with chains. Next, they sent a message, and the toxic gas bomb in the church was activated. The bomb released a continuous stream of white gas, and soon people began to cough as they were poisoned. The crowd began to stir and even attempted to escape, but the doors were tightly locked. Everyone affected by the toxic gas struggled in vain to resist, and in the end, all those in the church perished. The news quickly made headlines, reporting that the toxic gas attack in the Paris church resulted in 306 deaths. Suleiman immediately posted a video claiming responsibility for the attack. Ryan from the CIA was filled with deep regret. If only he had reacted differently when Ali drew his gun and hadn't shot him, he might have been able to interrogate him and learn their plans, potentially saving the innocent lives that were lost. But no matter how much he lamented, the incident had already occurred. Now, the most important thing was to find Suleiman. Once again, they gathered at CIA headquarters for a meeting. The leaders debated whether to participate in the investigation of the attack. The Minister of Foreign Affairs believed that the incident that occurred in France, and the victims were French, it should be handled by the French authorities. However, James reminded him not to forget the soldiers who died in Yemen and the 27 Americans who perished in the church. Suleiman's targets were all Western countries. At that moment, Ryan noticed the game that Ali had previously used to communicate with Suleiman on the screen. He came up with a plan. Suleiman still didn't know that his younger brother Ali was dead. They could use this to their advantage, pretending to be Ali and contacting Suleiman through the game, then using the clues to capture him. After receiving approval from their superiors, the French media immediately reported the capture of Ali. Suleiman, far away in Syria, saw the news. Meanwhile, at the CIA, agents had set a trap for Ryan to lure Suleiman using the game. He typed in English, which would automatically translate into French. Sure enough, he quickly received a reply from Suleiman. Ali claimed he was injured and needed help from his brother, providing his current address. Suleiman immediately sent the address to 3 members of his organization to investigate. In reality, the French police were already lying in wait there. An assistant nearby was very alert and quickly traced Ali's IP address for verification. Of course, the CIA had also prepared in advance and changed the IP to an address in France. Finally, Suleiman bid farewell to his younger brother, something he always did, before staying in contact, likely waiting for Ali's response, fearing that this might be a trap. Ryan could only send a simple farewell message, but this time he was exposed. Ali never said such things. Their superiors ordered Ryan to immediately shut down the game, but he didn't want to let the opportunity go. He said that they had met in Yemen. Suleiman guessed that Ryan was a psychological analyst, so he asked him if Ali was already dead. Ryan straightforwardly confirmed this to him, which made Suleiman furious. He vowed to find Ryan, but Ryan replied that he would find Hanan first. Suleiman was so enraged that he unplugged his network cable. CIA officials asked Ryan what he intended to do. In reality, Hanan was Suleiman's wife. It turned out that when Hanan discovered that each time her husband Suleiman returned, he brought back many people and weapons, she realized what he was doing. She didn't want to live in fear, so for the safety of her children, she decided to escape. That night, she put on all her gold jewelry, intending to secretly take her 3 children away. Her eldest son did not want to leave his father and insisted on staying behind. With no other choice, Hanan could only drive her 2 daughters ahead. On their difficult escape route, the kidnapping incident that occurred at the beginning of the film happened. The uncle accompanying them, who was a relative of Hanan, originally planned to kill the kidnapper, but unexpectedly, the kidnapper overheard them, resulting in the uncle being shot dead. Hanan also nearly fell victim to an attempted rape by the kidnapper. Perhaps because Hanan prayed to God for help every day, at the most dangerous moment, a missile fell from the sky, allowing her and her 2 children to escape. They traveled to reach a refugee camp in Turkey. Upon seeing the news about the terrorist attack in Paris and a video of her husband, she became even more determined to flee. So, she went to the US hoping for their protection, clearly stating that she was the wife of terrorist leader Suleiman. American officials asked Hanan where Suleiman was, but she suddenly remembered that her son was still with her husband, so she hurriedly tried to escape again. The person in charge of her case felt that something was definitely wrong. He was the intelligence officer at the camp, and he relayed this information back to the CIA. If they could find Suleiman's wife and daughter first, they might be able to control him. At this time, Hanan sought out a smuggler who specialized in transporting refugees. She used many of her gold rings, just gained eligibility to go to Europe. However, just as they were about to leave on the vehicle, the kidnapper from earlier appeared. Surprisingly, he had survived being hit by a missile. Hanan was extremely worried as she sat in the filthy, smelly truck on their way to a rest stop. She hurried her children to the restroom, which was disgusting, very basic, and frightening. At that moment, the kidnapper arrived. After inquiring, he rushed straight to the women's women's restroom. Hanan, keeping a lookout, suddenly spotted the kidnapper as he pushed a woman blocking his path aside and barged into the women's restroom, pulling out a gun and chased everyone outside. He then started checking each stall one by one. However, Hanan managed to sneak up from behind and hit him in the head with a rock, pushing him into a septic pit. She didn't dare to follow him any longer and led her daughters down a small path to continue their journey. Meanwhile, James and Ryan had flown to Turkey. The intelligence officer at the refugee camp informed them that Hanan had illegally made her way to Europe. With no other options, the two had to look for a local gangster here, offering $30,000 for him to take them to the coast to reunite with Hanan's group. On the way, the gangster was very cheerful and kept trying to make conversation, but Ryan looked down on this local thug. Eventually, Hanan, after a challenging journey, finally reached the coast. She led her two daughters into the crowd, put it on a life jacket, hoping to quickly board a boat and escape from this troubled land. Unfortunately, the kidnapper had not given up and followed them here. Seeing Hanan and calling Suleiman for opinion, Suleiman ordered the kidnapper to bring his daughter back at all costs, while he callously commanded that Hanan be killed. The kidnapper immediately accepted the order. Meanwhile, on the other side of the coast, James and Ryan had also arrived and were searching the crowd. Ryan, with his height advantage, spotted Hanan being taken away by someone and quickly drew his gun to approach. Tensions were high as both sides had their guns drawn. The thug hired by Ryan quickly went to speak with the local crime lord. Based on his influence, he managed to persuade the crime lord to side with him. After negotiations, the kidnapper agreed to release Hanan, but insisted that her two daughters must go with him. Ryan knew that without the two girls, they couldn't threaten Suleiman. James told Ryan to lower his gun first. When Ryan saw the two girls being pulled away, he became extremely anxious. James decisively fired, killing the kidnapper. The thug hired by Ryan hurriedly intervened to de-escalate the situation between the two sides. After all, the kidnapper was just a stranger to them, while the person Ryan hired was not someone to be taken lightly. Eventually, the kingpin of the seas agreed to let them go. James successfully completed the mission, and it seemed that the $30,000 was well spent. At the US airbase in Turkey, Ryan promised to do everything he could to help Hanan get her son back, which helped them pinpoint Suleiman's location. The leader of the terrorist organization, both cunning and ruthless, had planned the toxic gas attack in the Paris church, rapidly increasing his notoriety. He continued to gather soldiers to strengthen his power, skillfully exploiting all available resources to plan a terrorist attack on the US. He watched the news and learned that the international organization Doctors Without Borders had suddenly lost 12 doctors in Syria for unknown reasons. Many parties involved finally discovered their whereabouts, so they paid to ransom the group of doctors from the hands of another boss and asked the leader of the group, Daniel, what he needed in life. Dr. Daniel expressed the need for adequate food and medical supplies, which they provided. At the same time, Suleiman had seized control of another armed organization, making his own group increasingly powerful. To fulfill his mission, Suleiman worked hard, but family was the only thing holding him back. Hanan, along with her two daughters, had betrayed him and escaped, which saddened him. On the other side, at the CIA headquarters in the US, they used the location provided by Hanan to gather satellite images of Suleiman's base. They observed that the castle was heavily guarded. During a meeting of high-ranking officials from the counter-terrorism agency, most believed that direct airstrikes should be conducted. However, Ryan opposed this, stating that while bombing would eliminate Suleiman, it would not dismantle the threat posed by this terrorist organization to Western countries. Moreover, they would lose intelligence on ongoing or upcoming terrorist activities. As James and Ryan returned to their office, they received a report from Victor, which included footage from a camera showing that Suleiman had appeared at a private airport in Azerbaijan 6 months earlier. Through the investigation, he discovered that Suleiman had transported a corpse from Liberia to Azerbaijan, claiming it was to bury a relative. When it came to the corpse, James suddenly remembered the research on infectious diseases. He had invited representatives from the African Counterterrorism Center to an emergency meeting concerning a stolen corpse infected with Ebola. The two hurried there to ask Ryan's girlfriend, Dr. Muller, for her analysis. She speculated that Suleiman might be attempting to turn the Ebola virus into a biological weapon. In the past, Ebola had spread widely due to its limited transmission methods, but it couldn't be ruled out that they might upgrade and modify it through biochemical experiments. If Ebola could spread through the air, the consequences would be unimaginable. Meanwhile, Suleiman's wife, Hanan, was with her daughter in a safe place, living a life of confinement. The Americans, wanting her to cooperate with the CIA in the investigation, tried to meet their requests, even providing special spices used in Islamic cuisine and games that her eldest daughter enjoyed playing at home to make their lives less monotonous. The sister wanted to contact her younger brother through the game, and indeed, her younger brother responded. He was happy to know that his mother and sisters were safe. At that moment, he suddenly heard his father's footsteps and quickly lay down to pretend to sleep. Suleiman discovered that his son was secretly playing the game and had received a message from his daughter. It was then that he realized Ryan had found Hanin. On the other side, at the CIA headquarters, they confirmed that Suleiman was at the base, and that night, they decided to launch a ground attack. High-ranking officials from relevant departments were awake in the middle of the night, watching the live broadcast of the operation. The assault team successfully stormed in, but the place was eerily quiet, and the team was not ambushed. It turned out that Suleiman's people had already used a tunnel to leave the area beforehand. In the end, they rescued 12 doctors from various countries who had been imprisoned in the basement, including 4 American doctors who returned to the US, and he was personally welcomed by the president. Because Dr. Daniel had served in Vietnam with President POTUS, their relationship was very close. While James was organizing the documents gathered from Suleiman's base, he discovered a photo of Dr. Daniel with President POTUS. It seemed that Suleiman had long been aware of the relationship between the doctor and the president. James suddenly felt that the ease with which the rescued doctors were brought out was suspicious. They noticed that the news reported Dr. Daniel occasionally coughing, suggesting he was quite uncomfortable. Ryan realized that Suleiman was not manufacturing any biological weapons. The real weapon was the doctors they had imprisoned. They quickly issued an emergency alert to all presidents, cabinet members, and government officials who had interacted with the group of doctors, instructing them to go to the Memorial Hospital in Washington for a 21-day quarantine and testing. This time, Washington was facing a terrifying and serious biological terrorism threat, causing panic and fear throughout society. Meanwhile, Suleiman had changed his identity, holding a fake passport, and under the pretense of taking his son to the US for a checkup, he calmly set foot on American soil. This time, he would personally participate in a very important mission. On the other side, in Baltimore, Maryland, 2 people dressed in protective gear and wearing gas masks were lifting an iron chest from the bottom of an olive oil tanker. After opening it, they found 8 mysterious items inside. Carefully, they took out a glass vial containing a blue powder. Upon inspection, they saw that one vial was damaged, so they decisively tossed the broken vial aside. Not long after, the warehouse manager came to check the inventory and discovered the vial and the powder on the ground, bringing it close to his nose to sniff. This action led him straight to the hospital. The man hadn't even had a chance to say where he felt unwell when he suddenly began to vomit uncontrollably. After collapsing, he lost consciousness. He had been severely poisoned with radiation, specifically with isotope 137. The police tracked the source of the contamination to find the source of the material. The emergency investigation team held a meeting to address this serious issue. However, Ryan noticed that the missing cargo was not large, suggesting that the terrorists did not intend to kill hundreds of thousands of people. He recalled the toxic gas attack in the Paris church, where Suleiman first killed a famous priest to draw many dignitaries to the funeral. He then took the opportunity to eliminate this group. Could it be that this time he would use the same tactic if he wanted to wipe out all the high-ranking officials in the US government? How were Ebola and the incident with isotope 137 related? At that moment, Ryan still had no leads. Later that evening, a man entered a pizza shop and placed something under the table before hurriedly leaving. After exiting the shop, he made a phone call. As a result, the pizza shop exploded. James and Ryan received information about the explosion and immediately drove to the scene. On their way, they were informed that the cause of the explosion was just a regular plastic bomb, with no signs of isotope 137 found. It seemed this was not Suleiman's purpose. Ambulances rushed to the scene one after another, and an ambulance that had been hiding in a nearby alley also joined the convoy. Seeing the ambulance approaching from the opposite direction, Ryan thought about the injured being taken to the nearest hospital, the Washington Memorial Hospital. He immediately understood and instructed James to turn around, fearing that Suleiman's target was the high-ranking officials quarantined in the hospital. The Washington Memorial Hospital was welcoming a large influx of patients. Everyone was busy providing emergency care, but 3 individuals specifically took the injured from the ambulance, not to the emergency room, but directly to the morgue, stating that the patients were dead. They proceeded to the autopsy room, where they killed a doctor and then conducted an autopsy on the 2 bodies they had brought in. They carefully extracted a glass vial containing isotope 137 and attached it to a bomb. At that moment, James and Ryan arrived at the hospital. They informed the criminal police about the severity of the situation, and the team leader immediately arranged for the president and high-ranking government officials to be moved elsewhere. Ryan intended to call his girlfriend, Dr. Muller, to warn her to stay safe, but there was no signal in the hospital. Once there was reliable news of a bomb in the hospital, the CIA would cut off telephone signals and electronic devices in the suspected area to prevent a remote detonation of the bomb. Meanwhile, Suleiman approached the hospital's ventilation door, where large fans were continuously constantly rotating. He intended for the isotope 137 powder to spread throughout the hospital, aiming to kill all the wicked, high-ranking officials around the world. After finishing the bomb assembly, they connected their device to the hospital system. An assistant at the side entered a passcode, and with just the push of a send button from Suleiman, the bomb would immediately detonate. They then quickly left the scene. At that moment, the team leader of the criminal police found Mueller and informed her that she needed to evacuate the president and high-ranking government officials on the isolation floor immediately. Miller questioned what would happen to patients on other floors and the staff. She disagreed with this decision and immediately pressed the hospital's alarm. Why were the lives of high-ranking government officials more important than those of others? The Suleiman group heard the alarm and could only split up to escape. He stepped outside and tried to call the phone to detonate the bomb, but there was no signal, so it cannot be detonated. Then he planned to move further away and try again later. At that moment, his son was outside waiting to see his father. The boy innocently got out of the car and waved to his dad. The police, noticing that the boy was Middle Eastern, became particularly attentive to him. When the driver pulled out a gun, he was shot dead. Suleiman was approaching and couldn't reveal his identity, so he silently waved to his son. The boy, understanding the situation, pretended not to notice as his father walked away. Ryan, standing on the second-floor balcony, spotted Suleiman and fired, but they were too far apart. Ryan then chased after Suleiman, ultimately pursuing him to the subway station, where Suleiman was shot dead. He had not yet completed his grand plan. Ryan, an analyst for the CIA, became a hero fighting on the front lines. Suleiman's son returned to his mother, and James told Ryan that he had saved the boy's life. However, Ryan felt very sad because he now held another identity, that of the enemy who killed the father of 3 children. Ryan had previously served in the Marine Corps. During the time he was stationed in a small village in Afghanistan, a boy often approached him to take pictures, which he later sold to Ryan for $10. Ryan liked this boy very much. On one occasion, during a rescue mission, the boy begged Ryan to take him with him to escape that terrible place. Feeling pity for the boy, Ryan brought him onto the plane, but the boy had come for revenge. The plane exploded, and Ryan was the only survivor of that crash. To this day, he still feels immense guilt because his act of kindness led to the deaths of his comrades. But why hadn't he considered that, even if the boy hadn't boarded the plane, he would use other ways to retaliate against America? This concludes the film for today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, and see you next time.